One of the fundamental questions that societies have wrestled with for centuries is, what do we do with our elders? And it's not just a practical question, it's a deeply moral one. Because the way a culture treats its older generation tells you everything about its values, its sense of responsibility, and ultimately its future. See, in the past, multi-generational living was the norm. It wasn't just about necessity, it was about wisdom transmission, about continuity, about responsibility. But modern societies, particularly in the West, have moved toward a model of individualism that often leaves older people isolated, fragmented from the family structure that once provided meaning. So the question we need to ask ourselves is not just who should older people live with, but why have we lost the sense that they should live with anyone at all? Is it an economic issue, a cultural shift, a failure of responsibility? And more importantly, what are the psychological and social consequences of a society that isolates its elders? This isn't just a discussion about living arrangements. It's a discussion about meaning, about duty, about the structure of a healthy society. Because when we abandon the elderly, we don't just harm them. We erode the very foundation that holds our families together. So today, let's break this down. Practically, psychologically, and morally. Because how we answer this question will shape not only their future, but ours as well. The psychological need for connection is deeply ingrained in human nature. From the moment we are born, we depend on others for survival, development, and emotional well-being. This need does not diminish with age. In fact, it becomes even more critical. As people grow older, their social circles often shrink due to the natural progression of life. Retirement, the passing of friends and spouses, and physical limitations that reduce mobility. When these factors are coupled with societal shifts that prioritize independence over interdependence, many elderly individuals find themselves isolated with devastating psychological consequences. Human beings are inherently social creatures. Our brains are wired for interaction, and our sense of identity is largely shaped by our relationships with others. Studies in psychology and neuroscience have consistently shown that social engagement plays a crucial role in maintaining cognitive function. When older people are isolated, they lack the mental stimulation that comes from conversations, problem solving with others, and shared experiences. This can lead to a rapid decline in cognitive abilities, increasing the risk of conditions such as dementia and Alzheimer's disease. The brain, like any other muscle, weakens when not actively used, and social engagement is one of the most effective ways to keep it strong. Beyond cognitive health, emotional well-being is significantly impacted by the presence or absence of meaningful relationships. Loneliness is not just a fleeting emotion, it is a serious condition that has been linked to depression, anxiety, and even physical health issues such as high blood pressure and weakened immune function. When older individuals lack companionship, their stress levels increase, leading to a rise in cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Chronic stress can have a domino effect, deteriorating mental and physical health over time. The absence of regular, meaningful interactions deprives the elderly of a crucial buffer against stress, making them more vulnerable to emotional distress. Moreover, a sense of purpose is essential for psychological well-being at any stage of life. Many older individuals who live in isolation report feelings of uselessness and insignificance. In contrast, those who remain actively engaged with family, friends, or community activities often exhibit higher levels of life satisfaction. Purpose does not necessarily mean employment. It can be found in mentorship, caregiving, storytelling, or simply being a valued presence in the lives of others. When older people live in environments where they feel needed and appreciated, they are more likely to maintain a positive outlook, which directly impacts their overall health and longevity. Cultural perspectives on aging and social connection vary widely. Like in many traditional societies, elders are seen as sources of wisdom and guidance, and they naturally remain integrated into family life. In contrast, many modern societies, particularly in the West, have moved toward a model that prioritizes autonomy over community. While independence is valuable, it has sometimes been pursued at the cost of meaningful relationships. The result is that many elderly individuals are left to live alone, often in care facilities where social interaction is limited and depersonalized. This shift has profound implications for mental health, as it strips older people of their role within the family and reduces them to recipients of care rather than contributors to society. One of the most telling indicators of the importance of social connection is the impact of companionship on longevity. Research has shown that individuals with strong social ties tend to live longer, healthier lives. This is not simply because they have more people looking after them physically, but because emotional support plays a critical role in resilience. The presence of loved ones provides a buffer against the existential fears that often accompany old age, such as the fear of death, the fear of becoming a burden, and the fear of irrelevance. When elderly individuals have a close-knit social network, these fears are mitigated by a sense of belonging and continuity. Technology has provided some alternatives to physical companionship, such as video calls and social media, but these are not sufficient replacements for in-person interaction. While digital communication can help bridge the gap, it does not provide the same psychological benefits as face-to-face connection. The nuances of body language, the warmth of physical presence, and the spontaneous nature of real-world interactions are all crucial elements of meaningful relationships that cannot be replicated through a screen. For older people, who often struggle with adapting to new technology, digital communication can sometimes even add to their frustration rather than alleviate loneliness. Another important aspect to consider is the role of family in ensuring social connection for the elderly. In many cases, it is not that older individuals want to be alone, rather, it is that their families have become too preoccupied with their own lives to include them. This is not necessarily due to neglect or malice, but often a byproduct of a fast-paced world that places career and personal ambitions at the center. The challenge, then, is to find ways to reintegrate older people into daily life in a way that respects their dignity while also fulfilling their need for connection. Social policies and community initiatives can also play a role in addressing this issue. Programs that encourage intergenerational interaction, such as community centers, mentorship programs, and shared housing models, have been shown to improve the well-being of older individuals. However, these efforts can only go so far if societal attitudes toward aging do not change. The elderly should not be seen as a problem to be managed, but as individuals with valuable experiences and insights that can enrich the lives of those around them. Ultimately, the psychological need for connection is not just an abstract concept. It is a fundamental part of what makes life meaningful. For older people, the presence of family, friends, and community is not just a luxury. It is a necessity for maintaining mental, emotional, and even physical health. Addressing this need requires a shift in both personal attitudes and societal structures, ensuring that aging does not become synonymous with loneliness. The breakdown of multi-generational families is one of the most significant societal shifts of the modern age. For most of human history, families lived together across multiple generations, with grandparents, parents, and children sharing the same household, or at least remaining in close proximity. This arrangement was not just about convenience, but about the natural structure of human life, where wisdom was passed down, responsibilities were shared, and emotional bonds were strengthened over time. However, in today's world, particularly in urbanized and Western societies, this model has largely been abandoned in favor of an individualistic approach that prioritizes personal freedom, financial independence, and mobility. While this shift has provided certain advantages, it has also led to unintended consequences, particularly for older people, who often find themselves detached from the very families they once nurtured. Economic factors have played a significant role in this transformation. As societies industrialized, people moved away from their rural homes to seek employment in cities, creating physical distance between generations. The nature of work changed, requiring younger people to relocate frequently in pursuit of career advancement. This constant movement has made it difficult to maintain the close-knit family structures that once existed. In the past, families operated as economic units, with every member contributing to the household in some way. Grandparents played an essential role in childcare and household management, while younger members provided for the family financially. Today, the structure of the economy has made this kind of interdependence seem obsolete, with financial self-sufficiency becoming the primary marker of success. As a result, multi-generational living is often viewed as a sign of economic failure rather than a valuable tradition. Cultural attitudes have also shifted significantly. In many traditional societies, respect for elders is deeply ingrained, and it is considered an honor and a duty to care for aging parents. However, in many modern cultures, particularly those influenced by Western ideals of independence, aging parents are often seen as an inconvenience rather than a responsibility. The emphasis on personal achievement and self-reliance has led many people to believe that once children become adults, their primary obligation is to themselves rather than to their families. This mindset has contributed to a situation where elderly individuals are increasingly left to manage their later years alone, with minimal family support. The rise of retirement homes and assisted living facilities is another indicator of this cultural shift. While these institutions were originally designed to provide specialized care for those with serious health conditions, they have increasingly become the default solution for elderly individuals, even when they are still capable of living with their families. In many cases, placing parents in such facilities is not a matter of necessity, but of convenience. Busy work schedules, personal commitments, and lifestyle preferences make it easier for many families to delegate elder care to professionals rather than take on the responsibility themselves. While these facilities can provide medical care and structured activities, they cannot replace the deep emotional bonds that come from living within a family environment. Technology has also played a paradoxical role in the decline of multi-generational living. On one hand, digital communication has made it easier than ever for family members to stay in touch, even across great distances. Video calls, messaging apps, and social media allow older people to connect with their children and grandchildren without being physically present. However, these forms of communication are not a substitute for real-life interaction. A phone call cannot replace the warmth of shared meals, spontaneous conversations, or the daily presence of loved ones. In many cases, digital interaction creates a false sense of connection, leading families to believe they are maintaining relationships when in reality, they are growing more distant. The impact of this shift is not just felt by the elderly. It affects society as a whole. The loss of multi-generational households has contributed to a weakening of social cohesion, as younger generations miss out on the wisdom, experience, and emotional support that older family members can provide. Many social issues, including rising levels of loneliness, anxiety, and lack of guidance among young people, can be traced back to the breakdown of traditional family structures. Grandparents and older relatives have historically played a crucial role in shaping the values and character of younger generations, offering a perspective that parents alone cannot always provide. When this connection is lost, younger people are often left to navigate life's challenges without the stabilizing influence of elder wisdom. Moreover, the decline of multi-generational living has increased the burden on social welfare systems. When families no longer take responsibility for their elderly members, the responsibility falls on governments and institutions. Healthcare costs rise, demand for elderly care facilities increases, and society as a whole bears the financial and emotional burden of a fragmented family system. In contrast, societies that maintain strong multi-generational bonds often have lower healthcare costs and better overall well-being among their elderly populations, as family care is more personalized and emotionally enriching than institutional care. The erosion of multi-generational living is not an irreversible trend, but reversing it requires a fundamental shift in values. It requires society to recognize that independence and interdependence are not mutually exclusive, and that caring for the elderly is not just a burden, but an opportunity to strengthen familial bonds. It also requires an acknowledgement that while modern economic and social structures have changed, human emotional needs have not. Older people do not simply need a place to live, they need to feel valued, included, and connected. The breakdown of multi-generational families has created a void that no institution or technological advancement can truly fill. Responsibility is a concept that has been deeply embedded in human civilization for as long as families have existed. It is the foundation upon which societies have functioned, ensuring that each generation takes care of the one before it. However, in modern times, particularly in individualistic societies, the concept of responsibility toward older family members has increasingly come into conflict with the desire for personal convenience. This tension has led to a fundamental question. Are we neglecting our elders because caring for them is difficult, or have we simply lost our sense of duty? Caring for aging parents requires time, patience, and emotional resilience. It is not an easy task, especially in a world where work demands, financial pressures, and personal ambitions dominate daily life. Many people struggle with the idea of balancing their careers, raising their own children, and simultaneously providing care for elderly family members. The modern lifestyle is structured in such a way that extended family responsibilities are often seen as burdensome, rather than natural. The rise of dual households where both spouses work full-time has only exacerbated this issue, leaving little room for additional caregiving responsibilities. As a result, many families turn to professional caregivers or assisted living facilities as the default solution, not necessarily because they want to, but because they feel they have no other choice. At the same time, there has been a noticeable shift in attitudes toward family obligations. In traditional societies, taking care of aging parents was considered an unquestioned duty, an inherent part of the life cycle. Parents raised their children with the understanding that in their later years, their children would be there to support them in return. However, in many modern cultures, personal freedom and self-fulfillment have become prioritized over familial obligations. People are encouraged to pursue their own dreams, ambitions, and lifestyles, often at the expense of family unity. The expectation that individuals should prioritize their own happiness and independence has, in many ways, overshadowed the moral obligation to care for those who once cared for them. This shift is not just a cultural phenomenon, but also a psychological one. The modern world promotes a mindset where responsibility is often framed in terms of personal choice rather than duty. While choice is an important aspect of autonomy, it can also lead to an avoidance of obligations that are difficult or inconvenient. Taking care of an elderly parent is rarely convenient. It requires sacrifices, adjustments, and a reevaluation of personal priorities. When responsibility is seen as an option rather than a necessity, people are more likely to avoid it if it does not align with their immediate interests. This mindset is reinforced by a culture that values efficiency and productivity, where time spent caring for others is often seen as time taken away from one's own success and ambitions. Another factor contributing to this issue is the role of social institutions in providing elderly care. In the past, families were the primary support system for older individuals, but today, governments and private care facilities have largely taken over this responsibility. While these institutions serve an important function, they have also contributed to the normalization of delegating elder care to professionals. The availability of nursing homes, assisted living centers, and home care services has made it easier for families to distance themselves from direct caregiving. While these services can be beneficial, they should not be seen as replacements for familial care. No institution, no matter how well run, can provide the same level of emotional warmth, love, and personal attention that a family member can. The consequences of this shift are profound, not just for the elderly, but for society as a whole. When older people feel abandoned or neglected, their mental and emotional well-being deteriorates. Loneliness, depression, and a sense of purposelessness become common experiences for those who feel they are no longer valued by their own families. This, in turn, has broader implications for societal health, as an aging population that lacks support places greater strain on healthcare systems, social services, and community resources. The weakening of intergenerational bonds also affects younger generations, as they grow up without a strong sense of connection to their elders, missing out on the wisdom, guidance, and stability that older family members can provide. The issue of responsibility versus convenience is not just a practical dilemma. It is a moral question that speaks to the kind of society we want to build. If convenience becomes the primary factor in decision-making, then the relationships that require effort, patience, and sacrifice will inevitably suffer. True responsibility is not based on what is easy, but on what is right. There is an inherent value in caring for those who once cared for us, not because it is always simple, but because it is a fundamental part of what it means to be human. Caring for an aging parent can be challenging, but it is also one of the most meaningful expressions of gratitude, love, and respect. It is an opportunity to give back, to strengthen family bonds, and to set an example for future generations. The way we treat our elders today will shape the expectations and behaviors of the next generation. If we normalize neglect or avoidance of responsibility, we risk creating a society where no one feels truly secure in their later years. If, however, we choose to embrace responsibility despite its challenges, we reaffirm the values of compassion, duty, and human connection that have sustained families for generations. Building a sustainable model for integrating older people into family and society requires a fundamental reevaluation of how we view aging, responsibility, and community. The modern world has created a structure in which elderly individuals are often seen as a separate category, isolated from the daily flow of life and placed in institutions that, while providing basic care, do little to nurture a sense of belonging or purpose. This approach is neither sustainable nor beneficial for individuals or society as a whole. Reintegration must go beyond simply providing for their physical needs. It must also create an environment where older people feel valued, respected, and engaged in meaningful relationships. One of the primary challenges in reintegration is finding a balance between independence and support. Many older individuals do not want to feel like a burden on their families, and at the same time, families often struggle with how to provide care without disrupting their own lives. A sustainable model must acknowledge this tension and create solutions that allow for both autonomy and connection. One approach is to design living arrangements that promote interdependence rather than dependence. Multi-generational housing, for example, is a concept that has existed for centuries but has been largely abandoned in many modern societies. In this model, homes are designed to accommodate multiple generations under one roof while still providing private spaces for each member. This allows older individuals to remain close to their families while maintaining their own routines and sense of independence. In cases where living together is not feasible, proximity can still play a crucial role in maintaining family bonds. Encouraging neighborhoods or housing developments that prioritize community living, where older people are surrounded by friends, relatives, and familiar faces, can reduce the sense of isolation that often accompanies aging. In such environments, support networks form naturally, reducing the reliance on institutional care and fostering a sense of belonging. Social interaction is one of the most powerful tools in preventing cognitive decline, depression, and feelings of irrelevance. Older individuals who remain socially engaged tend to experience better mental and emotional health outcomes than those who live in isolation. Beyond housing, society must also create opportunities for older individuals to remain actively involved in their communities. Retirement should not mean withdrawal from meaningful contribution. Many elderly individuals possess a lifetime of knowledge, skills, and wisdom that can be incredibly valuable to younger generations. Mentorship programs that pair retirees with young professionals or students can be a way to transfer knowledge while also providing older individuals with a sense of purpose. Community organizations, volunteer opportunities, and advisory roles in businesses or educational institutions can also be avenues for engagement. When older individuals feel that their experience is still relevant, their sense of self-worth remains intact, leading to improved overall well-being. Another crucial element in building a sustainable model is redefining how society views aging. In many cultures, youth is idealized while aging is seen as a decline. This perspective influences how older individuals see themselves and how they are treated by those around them. If society continues to reinforce the idea that aging is a process of becoming irrelevant, then older people will naturally withdraw and feel disconnected. However, if aging is seen as a stage of life that brings wisdom, perspective, and new opportunities for contribution, then the integration of older individuals into daily life becomes a natural and beneficial process. Media, education, and cultural narratives must all play a role in reshaping these perceptions, highlighting positive examples of aging rather than portraying it as a problem to be managed. Technology can also be leveraged to facilitate reintegration. While digital communication cannot replace in-person interactions, it can serve as a bridge for maintaining relationships. Many older individuals struggle with adopting new technology, but initiatives that provide training and support can help close this gap. Social media, video calls, and digital communities can help older people stay connected with family and friends, especially when physical distance is a factor. Additionally, technology can be used to match older individuals with social opportunities, whether through local events, online learning, or digital volunteering. Healthcare systems also need to evolve to support a more integrated approach to aging. Instead of focusing solely on medical treatment, a sustainable model must address the holistic needs of older individuals, including mental health, social engagement, and quality of life. Preventative care, lifestyle interventions, and community-based health initiatives can all play a role in keeping older people healthy and engaged for longer periods. The current model, which often places elderly individuals in medical facilities as a default solution, should be replaced with a more personalized approach that prioritizes keeping them within their families and communities for as long as possible. Government policies and workplace structures must also adapt to the realities of an aging population. Many older individuals want to continue working in some capacity, but face barriers due to rigid retirement policies and workplace discrimination. Flexible work arrangements, part-time roles, and consulting opportunities can allow older professionals to remain active in their fields while accommodating their changing needs. A society that dismisses its older workforce prematurely not only loses valuable expertise, but also contributes to the financial and emotional struggles that many elderly individuals face when they are forced into early retirement. Family dynamics play a central role in ensuring that older individuals feel integrated rather than isolated. Conversations about aging should not be avoided or treated as uncomfortable topics. Families should openly discuss how they plan to care for their older members and find ways to involve them in daily life. Small actions such as including them in decision-making, celebrating their achievements, and seeking their advice can reinforce their sense of importance within the family unit. The key is to create an environment where aging is not associated with being pushed aside, but with remaining an essential part of the family's foundation. A truly sustainable model for integrating older people must be built on a foundation of respect, inclusion, and adaptability. It requires a shift in mindset where aging is no longer seen as a burden, but as a stage of life that holds value. It demands practical solutions that accommodate both the needs of older individuals and the realities of modern family life. Above all, it requires a collective effort from families, communities, institutions, and governments to ensure that older individuals are not just cared for, but also valued, engaged, and empowered to live fulfilling lives. A society is measured not by how it treats its most powerful, but by how it cares for its most vulnerable. The way we integrate and support older individuals reflects the depth of our values, our sense of responsibility, and our ability to balance progress with human connection. When older people are isolated, neglected, or seen as burdens, it is not just their lives that suffer, but the entire fabric of the family and the community. The loss of intergenerational bonds weakens the foundation of wisdom, guidance, and emotional security that has sustained families for centuries. Restoring these bonds requires a conscious shift in perspective. It is not enough to provide physical care. There must be an active effort to create environments where older individuals feel valued, needed, and engaged. It means making room for them in our homes, our conversations, and our decisions. It means ensuring that they continue to have a role in shaping the lives of those who come after them. When they are included, they thrive, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. The challenge is not whether society can find a way to support its aging population, it is whether it chooses to do so with dignity, love, and responsibility. The structures and systems that prioritize convenience over connection must be questioned, and the cultural mindset that glorifies independence at the cost of family cohesion must be reevaluated. There is nothing weak about caring for those who once cared for us. There is nothing burdensome about honoring those who spent their lives building the very world we now live in. The decision to keep older people within the family, to include them in everyday life, and to ensure they remain part of the larger community is not just about them. It is about all of us. The future of aging is the future of every individual, and the way we treat our elders today sets the standard for how we ourselves will be treated when our time comes. The greatest legacy we can leave is not just in the achievements we pursue, but in the relationships we nurture, the respect we uphold, and the values we pass down through the generations.